Ihr Auftrag war klar. Bei den Olympischen Sommerspielen in London 2012 sollte das Vereinigte Königreich so viele Medaillen wie noch nie gewinnen. Das Ergebnis: 65 Mal Gold, Silber und Bronze. Die beste Medaillenbilanz aller Zeiten. Mastermind hinter dieser Erfolgsgeschichte war Susan Campbell. Sie ist Mitglied des britischen House of Lords und Vorsitzende des Youth Sport Trust. Mit ihr spricht heute der ehemalige Herausgeber der Harvard Business Review, Gründer des Business-Magazins Fast Company, selbsternannter Global Detective und ACADEMIA SUPERIOR Vordenker der ersten Stunde. Bitte begrüßen Sie Baroness, Susan Campbell und Alan Webber.
So we heard a little bit about your journey, but the challenge was very difficult that you were asked to take on. I have some of the numbers. In 1996, England, 1 gold medal, 36th among all the countries. In 2004, 4 gold medals, 10th overall. And then you were hired, and you were asked, can you take us from good, because 10th is good, can you take us from good to great? And over on the podium it says, the way to the best. I think it's a great story. What was the journey that you took England on? What were some of the steps from being 10th, and then all of a sudden, over a sustained effort, you end up 3rd in the world in the London Olympics? How did you start that journey?
We began by being very clear what the mission was going to be. So we started by looking at the countries that were above us. And what I discovered was that we made lots of excuses as to why 10th was good enough. So we'd ask about 9th and 8th and 7th and 6th and 5th, and it was, they've got better this, or they've got better that, or they've got more money, or they've got better facilities. Eventually, when we got rid of all excuses, we set the ambition that we believed 4th was possible. In the end, we were 3rd, which was fantastic. And that made us the most successful Olympic nation for our population size in the world. And that was our ambition. So we set off on that journey with a very clear mission. It was a long journey, 8 years, with very clear goals along the way. And we had to create a mindset change that said, if you really want to be world leading, we have to try every day to be a little better than we were yesterday. And that being the world's leading, the world's best, wasn't a magic wand. It was progress day after day after day, and working very hard and being unafraid to innovate wherever we could to create the step change we needed to move us up that ladder.
Now, obviously, this is a great case study in the area of sports, but it also applies to business, to a state, a community, a city, trying to go from being very good to world class. Along the way, you must have learned some very clear lessons about how to help people see what world class looks like, how to tap into the hidden talent that people have, but they may not even know that they have them. What stands out in your mind as the takeaways that anyone can use, whether they want to start a new business or take an existing business higher, or take a very good place to live and make it even better?
This is a beautiful place to live. I think there are a number of things. First of all, you have to know what great looks like. So you might be sitting here thinking you're already great because you don't know what great is. And one of the things I did with my colleagues and with sport was take them to world-leading places. So Sandhurst, where we prepare our top officers in the army. McLaren, which is Formula One racing driving, so that they could see what world class really felt like and looked like. And then it's about helping everybody unlock their creativity. So if we were going to be world class, everybody had to bring their best every day, but we also had to give them freedom to take risks, to innovate, to take chances, to learn. We had people doing innovation internally, but we also had someone scanning externally, looking at innovation in other fields. So innovation in medicine, innovation in science, innovation in business talent development, anything that we could pull back in to our business and make our business better.
And you also used asking questions very effectively. I think most people might have in their mind the notion that your job was to tell everybody the answer. But when I was talking with you this afternoon, it was clear that what you did more effectively than anybody was know how to ask the right questions. And in particular, using questions to get people to step outside of their comfort zone and try new things.
Yeah.
Tell how that worked.
Well, I think the one thing I've learnt in life is that you can't change other people. They have to want to change themselves. So you can't say to somebody, you will change. You have to ask questions that give them the desire to change. And so we had some successful sports when I took over, 4, 5 good sports, but we had 21 that weren't so good. And we needed to create a sharing of best practice, and an understanding that everybody had something to contribute. So although there were some sports more successful than others, everybody had a contribution to make. So it created this notion that no matter where you were, you still had something that was special. So it created this sense of self-esteem and self-worth, this notion that together we were stronger, that if you used the skills of everybody in the system, no matter what job they did, they needed to be valued, they needed to be part of the journey, and they needed to feel that when we won that victory, it belonged to all of them. It didn't belong just to the athletes, it belonged to the coaches, the sports scientists, the sports medics, the technicians, the people who drove the bus, the people who changed the beds that the athletes slept in. They all won those medals. The medals were not just won by the athletes. And creating that sense that we were all on this journey together was what made it successful.
You had, when you were interviewing the people at the sports organization when you took over, you had 3 questions.
I did, yeah.
That you used to try to bring out of them new possibilities. What were those 3 questions?
They sound very simple, but I've used them subsequently, and they work really well. The first question is, what do you do? And that was not about them describing the tasks they did, but rather what is the purpose of what you do? You can ask that question of anybody at any point in a business. What do you do? The second question is, what could you do? Which is, okay, if I removed all the constraints, probably removed the boss, removed all the constraints, all the limitations, what could you do? What's in your head that we haven't found out about? What could you do? And the third question is, what stops you? So, what do you do? What could you do? And what stops you? And those 3 questions gave me a very clear picture of where I had people in the business that were creative, where I had people in the business that were the engine, going to keep the thing really moving forward, but perhaps weren't going to be my creative thinkers, people who needed to go and work somewhere else, and a really strong sense of the management system inside the organization and what it would take to drive this, everybody achieving their personal best, everybody achieving their personal best every day.
One of the questions that must come up in looking forward, other countries want to do what you were able to do. How do you assess the importance of money as part of the equation? I'm sure people must ask you, can you buy an Olympic medal if you just spend enough on a sport? So what do you think about as the role of investment in the formula, the whole chemistry of creating a winning organization?
Well, the investment between the Athens cycle and the Beijing cycle and the London cycle didn't change significantly. What changed was our investment strategy. And we took a very clear decision that we were going to take a very tough approach to investment. And we were going to focus in on the places we thought we could make the greatest difference. And that was a hard thing to do. It wasn't always a popular thing to do, but it's what created the step change. So money is important in as much as we need to invest it wisely, and we need to think where it can make the greatest difference. But the real difference was creating a pride, a sense of national purpose, a belief that given the chance, our athletes could and would not only compete with the best in the world, but could win. And that was a mindset change, which is about believing you want to be great, not being satisfied with being good. So it's about getting rid of complacency and putting yourself in discomfort, being prepared to be in an uncomfortable place to try to get to the next stage. And as painful as that was at times, when we arrived in London and those medals kept coming onto the podium, probably the greatest moment of my life.
But you mentioned pain, and I think that's another thing that needs to be spoken about. There's a sense of sport. You see the victor on the podium, you see the pride, the national anthem is played. But behind the scenes, there's a lot of disappointment, pain. You had a lot of sleepless nights. People don't think that leadership is a painful profession, but you must have suffered through a lot of difficult hours as well as the triumphs at the end.
Yeah, I think if the cause, the moral purpose is strong enough, you can go through pain. I think that the pain, the anxiety, is part of being a leader. You know, my father used to say, if you don't want to get burnt, don't go in the kitchen. You know, and if you don't want to realize that leadership is actually a tough business. It's hard to lead and lead well, and it is painful. But equally, for me, the great thing about our elite athletes is not the medals. That's the end of the journey. It's the journey. And the journey that our athletes go on should inspire every single person in this room and their children, because it's about ordinary people, just like you and just like me, who have a dream, who are prepared to follow that dream, who are prepared to come back when they're injured, who are prepared to not be selected but come again, who are prepared to fail, analyze it, come back and try one more time. It's a lesson for every single child in life. It is an inspiration that says, if you have a dream, it doesn't matter what it's in, and that's what Norbert and Herta are wonderful examples of. You have a dream, you have a passion, you're prepared to go through fire to get there, you can make that dream come true. And that's why it's an inspiration to everybody, and in particular to children.
And before we, before we leave the stage, I think it's important for you to say a little bit about the project you're working on now. You've left the Olympics successfully. You have taken your bow. But now you're doing something that is just as important. And you have a new cause and a whole nonprofit organization that you're leading. And it has a lot to do with children and well-being and how sport can take children places they couldn't otherwise go. So describe a little bit your new mission, your new passion.
I work now very much focused on trying to use sport to change young people's lives for the better. So it's as simple on one end as making sure that they get access to regular sport and activity so that they're physically healthy. It's also about helping them feel emotionally better. We have all sorts of problems now with the digital age, as wonderful as it can be. It also brings with it many challenges for young people. They sit in a room, in their bedroom, and they think they have 400 friends, but don't have a friend at all. They're alone. They have become less good at communicating, less good at showing empathy, because you don't have to on this thing. I can say something really rude to you on this thing, and there's no consequence for my behavior. So behaviors are changing, attitudes are changing, and I believe sport is one of the most powerful tools we have to help children develop those qualities that make them great human beings. I'm not bothered in the end whether they become Olympic champions. That's wonderful for the few that do. But for me, sport is an incredibly powerful way of helping children be successful in life, because it helps develop some of those skills that unfortunately in this day and age are getting less and less commonplace. Resilience, empathy, ability to work with others, compassion, concern, ability to just simply communicate. We're losing those things. And we've really got to, our education system, and this is where Herta and I are on exactly the same page, our education system has got to take these issues seriously, because we are in grave danger of losing civil society as we see our children go more and more into this digital vacuum that they're disappearing into. So I'm passionate about what I'm doing, and I'm trying to take all the lessons I learnt from the Olympics, and we have a 10-year dream and a 10-year vision, and I hope I live long enough to see it through.
Thank you very much, Sue.